Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cesar's not here today. Okay, well, thank you for those who are joining in person and those who are joining virtually. This meeting is being recorded, and our executive assistant is also charged with taking minutes. So in that spirit, I do ask that we keep side conversations to a minimum, and if we must have one, please let's step outside to limit the noise for those that are listening virtually. Thank you. I would like to address, if you would like to address any non-agendized item, please make sure you fill out one of these speaker cards. There is a limit for non-agendized items to 30 minutes, so if we go beyond that time, we would have to come back once all other agenda items are completed. Of course, please follow the same process for any agendized items. And then again, if you look at the form, it does say those forms should be submitted before the beginning of the meeting or upon your arrival. We will not be accepting ad hoc requests. And then again, I think a couple of relevant reminders are that the board does not normally respond to speakers, but I may direct staff to either answer a question, make a comment at this time during the meeting, or at some point after the meeting. And then finally, we will always make the commitment that we will strive to conduct ourselves in a very professional manner and in accordance with the Brown Act guidelines. We ask that we all treat each other with respect, and that we do and we absolutely look forward to your constructive feedback. We are all here for the same reason, and we're all striving to really drive a culture of excellence in our district. So having said that, I'd like to report out on closed sessions, and I report that no action was taken. Given that we did make a modification to the agenda, I'd like to speak on a second point. At the approval of the agenda, we had moved item 16.1, and we had also, we've actually pulled now an item from closed session, superintendent search. We've now pulled it from the agenda. Okay. So with that, one of the items that we pulled up was the superintendent report. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, President Martinez. Thank you, President Martinez, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, I recently submitted my resignation as superintendent of Newark USD, effective June 30th, 2019 rather. I also announced that my intent was to be as helpful as possible in developing a transition plan that would ensure stability to our district. As part of that effort, I've been working with board members Martinez and Gutierrez to identify areas that I would have a focused effort upon that I may support while handing off the day-to-day district operations to an interim leader. As a result of that work, I recommended and they agreed that I should focus on capital improvement projects for our schools. We believe that this allows me to solely focus on capital projects that have been pending for some time and are critical to improving the learning environments of all of our students. Just in the last couple of days, in collaboration with the hardworking team at MOT, which I'm getting to know even better, we've been able to generate some ideas for prioritizing the work, and we'll be working with staff to ensure that we develop a solid project plans and ensure a successful process from bidding to completion. So we're going to see more of a focus on getting those things completed and reporting on how things are going. At the same time, it does allow an interim leader to focus on the day-to-day, and in turn, they could provide the continuity to the new superintendent once they come on board. I look forward to continuing to serve this community during this transition. I look forward to continuing to work with the board team as they want and need help from me. I hope everyone, not only community we serve, but the staff that works for us has a great, well-deserved break over the winter break that's coming. And that concludes my comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Sanchez, for being here. Thank you for, really partnering with us to try to find you used the word continuity, and to really find a plan that really looks for that stability and continuity for our schools. I know we met a couple of days ago. I really appreciate your enthusiasm with working with the team. We went through a bunch of projects that are really critical to our kids. So we're really confident that with your leadership, we're going to get some of those really important ones completed before you leave us.
I'm excited to get them done just as much as you guys.
Can I say something if you don't mind?
Sure. Go ahead.
One of the things that for the last few years have been so frustrating, actually since we started doing the projects that are paid for by the bond, is the people that we had chosen to help us, and being Vanner. And the fact that, this is an area where you definitely have expertise in, and that you're going to help move that along, and as we get to the end of the, projects and everything. And hopefully we won't have anybody upset that their faucet at the school is not working properly, okay? Because you'll make sure that the whole process is better. But hey, not to minimize it, I just want to let you know that I appreciate it, and I know that it's going to help us as a board, the work that you're going to be doing as you stay with us until the end of your contract.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me just say one more thing.
Sure, of course.
No, I'm really looking forward to just working. I know there's plenty of work to do. We have plenty to work as a team as, and I'm really pleased in the amicable and professional tone that we maintain and will maintain. So it's not, the work is hard, but I think the way we're working together is how things should be done. So I appreciate that from the board. And as you know, I do have to step out. But thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Merry Christmas.
Yep.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
I'll be here
Christmas.
tomorrow. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good news.
With that, we'll move on to item 7, which is public comment on non-agenda items. And we do have one speaker, Ms. Yvonne Baker. And as a reminder, you do have 3 minutes, and you will get a 30-second flash reminder.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I am here on behalf of my child. My child attends Schilling Elementary School. She is in 1st grade. This year, about a month and a half into the school year, her teacher abruptly left with very short notice to the families and children. I do understand life happens. And sometimes we can't avoid certain things. We were comforted with the fact that there would be a replacement teacher stepping in, which happened very quickly, and has now built those bonds. It's been a couple of months, built those bonds with those children. And I have learned through asking questions, I was concerned on what the rest of the school year looks like. I'm very familiar with, subs stepping in, and from what I understand, it looks as though there's a possibility that this teacher that now has created those relationships may not finish out the school year. That's concerning to me because of the consistency, the break, the education. We're all here for the same common goal, and that's the children's education. And I feel as though our responsibility as the adults that are here to make sure there is that security, continuity, as you spoke about a little bit, and consistency is extremely important, as we all, I'm sure, agree. I know that there are certain things that come into play that we don't all know about that may affect that decision, if that is in fact the truth. But my understanding is that a change could potentially happen possibly March, April, which leaves a couple months left of school, which I feel would be extremely impactful to the children and families that have now just settled down again. So that is my big concern, and thank you for letting me share that. I feel that we just really need to take a step back and look at the overall picture, and that is the children, their consistency, and the best possible education that we can provide for them. So thank you again for letting me speak, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I will give you some direction to follow up, if you can.
Absolutely.
Please.
We'll get your contact information. Or she's
shoot.
out, but
Oh,
we
she
can
left.
find the contact. Can you please get it? Thank you.
This is my first time.
Me too. Me too.
Please come more often.
Thank you
Bring
so
more
much.
parents.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So moving on to item 8, as we have no additional speaker cards, staff report, Associate Superintendent Salinas, please.
Yes, good evening. This evening, we have our director, Mr. Ariel Dolovich, who is going to present our school dashboard. As you know, California is under a new accountability system that is a growth mindset. And now that the dashboard is off embargo, he's going to present an update on our work here in New York Unified.
Good evening. Nice to see you. Happy holidays. On December 12th, the California Department of Education released the California Dashboard results. Tonight, I'm going to provide an overview of the California Dashboard. I'm going to remain concise, and I'm also going to highlight the district and school results and draw implications and takeaways for us as a district. As many of you are aware, the California Dashboard is the state's relatively new system of accountability. It arrived approximately 3 years ago. Prior to that, there was a single measure, and that was either AYP or API for the schools. It was based on a single test score. For the California Dashboard, there are 3 key takeaways. One is that it's more than a single number. There are 11 components, 6 state measures and 5 local measures. 2, there's an equity focus. If you look at each of those measures, you can drill down and disaggregate based on student subgroup. And third, there's a local aspect to it. We're going to use this year local control funding formula from the state and LCAP to align areas of most need for our school sites. So as I mentioned, 6 state measures or indicators and 5 local measures. So how is the dashboard displayed? Essentially, it's displayed by a 5x5 grid. It does vary per measure. If you look at the x-axis at the top and you look at declined significantly, declined, all the way over to increased significantly, that is the current year score minus the difference from the previous year. If you look at the y-axis, very high, high, medium, low, and very low, that is only the current year score. It is going to vary by measure, and the intersection will determine the color or performance level. Lowest is red, and all the way through green and blue would be the highest colors. If you speak to anyone from the California Department of Education, and there is a link to the California Department of Education and dashboard website here, if you click on it, there are 11 indicators. This is what's called the landing page. It's essentially a 30,000-foot overview. And the reason for that is it encapsulates our district in a snapshot. You'll see that the first 6, chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, English learner progress, graduation rate, college and career, and then English language arts and mathematics both fall under academics. So those 6 together make up the state indicators. You'll also probably notice that the English learner progress has no color. That's because the state is in year 2 of 3 of compiling data. So there is no performance level, but it will give us an update, and I'll go into that momentarily. The other 5 ed services, including myself and Ms. Salinas, reported earlier this year to California Department of Education, and we're happy to report that Newark met each of the 5 local indicators. So those would be basic instructional materials, implementation of standards, parent-family engagement, local climate survey, and access to a broad course of study. So we met each of those local indicators. Tonight, I'm going to delve into the state indicators.
Quick question.
Yes.
Are these, the indicators, are they just met and not met?
Yes.
That
For those local.
that not exceeded, just met or not met?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, another way to capture those 6, again, academic, assessed grades 3 through 8, grade 11 only. Under that falls ELA and math, and then you see the other 5 state indicators right there before you. The academic indicator breaking down into English language arts and mathematics. So English language arts, if you look just under the yellow performance indicator, it'll say the status level, and our status level is 9.9 points below standard. In other words, 9.9 points away from going to the green performance level. The change level is just below that. It says increased 8.3 points. So good news, we increased 8.3 aggregate points as a district. No one is saying that's good enough, but that is our English language arts. Momentarily, I will drill down with equity in terms of the subgroup, and you'll see the breakdown below it. 7 of our significant subgroups fell into that yellow category, and we'll go over that momentarily. 1 fell in the orange, 0 in the red. That's English language arts. Unfortunately, we're in year 2 of our math adoption, Big Ideas Math. And mathematics, you'll see right there, scored, and it's a district challenge at the orange performance level. You can see the breakdown. 4 of our subgroups scored, 4 of them in the orange, 5 yellow, 1 green, 1 blue. So if you go a little bit more deeper into ELA, for instance, no students scored in the red. However, students with disabilities scored in the orange for English language arts. And then, like I said, 7, the majority fell into the yellow performance. Those would be African American, English learner, Hispanic, homeless, 2 or more races, Pacific Islander, socioeconomically disadvantaged. Obviously, you're going to see a theme here emerge here tonight. The other thing to say is if there's no performance level with American Indian foster youth, we don't have a significant number of those students to be able to dictate a performance color. Mathematics, it's a little bit more concerning than English language arts, and you can see the results and takeaways, but one of the big things I want to highlight here is what are we doing now? What are the implications? I'm going to get to that in a minute. So for mathematics, you can see no students scored in the red. However, again, English learners, Hispanic, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities in the orange, and Filipino and Asian both scored in the green and blue. And if you go back to English language arts, we had Filipino, white, and Asian all score in the green and blue. So this allows us to align our resources, our fiscal resources, our professional development, our site plans, and to be able to try to better support strategic subgroups. So what are some of those implications? What are we doing right now? Why isn't there more of a sense of urgency? So some of those implications that we attribute for maintaining ELA, last year we had embedded coaching at the elementary level. We have a wealth of experience and expertise when it comes to our elementary teachers. We tapped into that. We're continuing that with Readers and Writers Workshop. We have a contract with Nicole Padawan, who's very reputable. She provided a professional development in October. She came out again today. We had a district-wide TK through 6 elementary PD, and I'll get to that in a minute. Year 2 of BIM. So we need to do a better job of unpacking our curriculum. It's a new adoption, but we're also coupling that with hands-on math lessons, and this district has a full-time math coach. That math coach is going out to staff presentations, providing model lessons in the classroom, conducting observations, things of that nature to better and strategically support math on the ground. Our units of instruction, last year they did 4. I work closely with the principals. This year we're doing 2 before the SBAC comes, and then we're highlighting the CASP and we're really looking to focus on climate initiatives. So we're providing additional resources to intervene before the cycle's over. We're targeting students, we're looking at those subgroups and trying to find out before the cycle's complete where to intervene with instruction and reteaching. And then finally, in 2020, we begin working on our SIPSs, Single Plan for Student Achievement. All principals, some are Title I and have additional resources. How do they better align those resources with their site plans based on their student results? Today we had an English learner theme, and you see that as an area of concern for this district throughout the data. We had English learners, we had an ELD focus, we had hands-on science with Bayside and a UC Berkeley partnership. We also had a workshop model where the teachers attended coaching with Silicon Valley Math, SEAL Strategies, which is a TK1 initiative for our English learners. And then we also had Nicole Padowin, like I mentioned, and that was focusing on English learners with Readers and Writers Workshop, which is what we use for our English Language Arts curriculum. So how did that look? Just give you some examples today, and supporting teachers have asked for more structured collaboration time. And then they were able to break out both in morning and afternoon sessions. There's a science focus with hands-on activities from UC Berkeley and also with English learners as an emphasis. That was the morning. And then the afternoon, they had choice. I worked with the principals in the afternoon, and we started looking at some of this data in terms of unpacking it and how it better aligns at different sites. Kennedy, for instance, is going to look very different than Graham and music. The next indicator is college and career readiness. This one is a little bit more complicated. There is a handout that goes with it because there's multiple criteria that determine college and career. One of the main criteria is making sure that you're A through G ready at the high school level. And you can see, for instance, access and equity at the high school level to that coursework. That's going to be imperative for us because we look at English learners and we look at students with disabilities, and they performed at a red level. That's absolutely unacceptable. And if you look at orange, you can also see Hispanic, homeless, and socioeconomically disadvantaged. If you go to some of our implications, we're already looking at expanding vertical articulation, junior high, grades 7 through 12. That would be with a college-going program such as AVID and Puente, which has proven results. We already offer Puente at the high school level. We do not offer Puente at the junior high level, and that would be critical to apply. You can see right here, we're looking at drilling down with our English learners, our students with disabilities, homelessness. One thing I'm going to mention at the end is our partnership with Alameda County Office of Education. We've already partnered with Dublin Unified in Castro Valley. They shine a spotlight on homeless students. So how do we meet with our office managers, our counselors, support them, identify those students so people know who they are because they need additional resources at the site level. The third indicator, chronic absenteeism. If you look at that, we are one of the leaders in the entire county, and we're being celebrated by Alameda County. We jumped multiple performance levels, and we are now in the green. And so that's news to be celebrated for Newark Unified.
If I may?
Yes. So if you look at that, things to note. In the change level, decline, that's a good thing. You want to decline with your chronic absenteeism. You can see we have no students in the red and orange. And students of concern include African American, students with disabilities, homeless, Pacific Islander. We've already begun the Ed Services team to meet with Dublin and Castro Valley, like I said. We're working to partner in terms of the homelessness situation. That is only becoming more rampant throughout the Bay Area, and that's data we receive from the county. So we have stakeholders and partners with them. And then if you look at the chronic absenteeism in terms of our green and blue, you can see that there are a majority of our students that jumped multiple levels to performance colors where we want them. Graduation rate. This is an area that deserves note, especially at the high school level. Although the state average is 83%, in terms of graduation, and ours exceeds the 83% at an 89.1 clip. We did decline with graduation, and we know there was instability at the high school level in the previous years, and that's an area where, again, if we expand our college-going pathways and we strategically target A through G courses and equitable access for English learners and Hispanic students, we could see a significant boost in terms of our graduation rate. I think that's a very attainable goal, but we do need to make sure that we're supporting our high school, that we're working with our staff, we have boots on the ground, and then we have programs from a district level where we shine a spotlight and support them, and so we're partners in the process. We're not distant and away at the district level. Suspension rate. This is our second category where we were most improved. Our suspension rate jumped multiple levels to green, and it's a good thing, again, when you trend and decline. We declined 0.6 when it comes to suspension rate, but some of the themes that emerge are specific to students with disabilities, and you can see that right there where they performed in the red category, and then again, socioeconomically disadvantaged with the orange. So I think working with the office staff, counseling department, one of the things that we're looking at, and I think it was mentioned in an earlier session, both the junior high and high school principal have already been on a visit to a site in Southern California. We're looking at alternatives to suspension. A hot button issue throughout the nation are restorative practices at the secondary level, group mediation, looking at building on student assets. And so we need to figure out how to better support the socio-emotional and the mental health of our students. I know when I was a principal, we did a lot of things in terms of assemblies, in terms of pulling them out with a boys group or a girls group and giving them the skills and working with them in terms of the mediation so that it didn't reach a place where there was crisis or there was nowadays so much on social media, and a lot of times as sites, we inherit that. So how do you proactively put systems in place? And one of the ways you do that at the secondary level is to have conversations, provide the resources and training, and place an emphasis on some of the programs, and those would be restorative practices, small group mentoring, counseling, and having mentors. English learner progress. So I said here before, it does not get a performance level. We're in year 2 as a state. After next year, the state will give every district and school a performance level. Interestingly enough, we're only 2.4% away from what's characterized as medium. Medium is 45% to 55%, and we come in at 42.6%. So we're actually, contrary to belief, making more progress than we thought. In fact, 37.9% of our students made more than one progress level with the LPI. That's the English Learner Progress Indicator. And so I think that's something to take note of. But as you're about to see, today with SEAL, which is the Sobrato Early Academic Language Development, SIOP, which are strategies essentially to support English learners across the curriculum, that's a junior high focus. We need to do a better job of making that part of the general ed curriculum. It's not just for ELD, it's not just for English learners, it's really best strategies that are proven and research-based. So we have SIOP at the secondary level, and I know speaking with the interim principal at the high school that that's going to be a part of the focus for March 2nd, because that's the staff development day, and that's something they're weaving into their staff meetings right now, are instructional strategies to support English learners. So site-specific results, in the interest of summarizing all of this and also answering the question of what are we doing now with a sense of urgency, I'm only going to highlight 3 sites. However, for the community, for the public, and for the board, I provided detailed data for all 11 sites. So you have that before you, but I'm going to take you through 3 that deserve to be celebrated. So first and foremost, if you look at Birch Grove Intermediate, they declined 16.2% and moved all the way to a blue performance level when it comes to chronic absenteeism. That is something to be applauded. Excellent job, Birch Grove Intermediate out there. Also, they increased double digits for both English language arts and math. So they are obviously trending in the right direction, and that's something to take note of. But perhaps even more impressive, Graham Elementary scored more than 24 points when it comes to both English language arts and math. English language arts, they scored over 24.9 and increased 24 points in mathematics. And when you're a Title I school in a district and you make that significant of a development, that brings the entire district up, obviously, because they were one of our lower performing schools in the past. The other thing to take note of, obviously, is that they continue to make gains with declining their suspension rate. And so, again, want to applaud Graham and shine the spotlight on them. All three of these schools, BGI, Graham, and now Kennedy, all three of those principals have already presented here at board meetings. And so we want to continue to celebrate our schools and bring them up to let you know about the good things that are going on. Because that does deserve note, and the report is essentially mixed, right? How can we replicate what is proven, and how we can have a sense of urgency around what really needs to have urgency with those significant subgroups and that issue of equity. Kennedy, as you can see right there, I think moving all the way over to the English learner progress box, essentially doubled the district. And they have 65.2% making progress with English learners. And if you've been monitoring Kennedy, and I've been looking at their data over the last 3 years, they've had an increase in English learners at their site. So for them to be making gains in that department deserves note, as does obviously their suspension rate, chronic absenteeism in the blue, and then English language arts increased 11 points, and mathematics almost as much as Graham, 23.8. I will like to say this loud and clear. Are there other characteristics or aspects of school progress that deserve celebration? Yes. I simply want to be cognizant of summarizing the results and letting the public, community, and the board dig deeper. If we continue on and through some of the other schools, what you'll find is a summary of this presentation. I think the big picture is that the dashboard, it continues to evolve, but it's a holistic, broad measure, and it allows us as schools and as a district to identify areas of need. What's working with English language arts, we're bringing back someone to have embedded coaching. We're also slowing down, and we want to provide really hands-on development when it comes to mathematics and unpacking big ideas math, coupling it with a math coach and our Silicon Valley Math Initiative. And then for the principals, beginning in February, they create single plans for student achievement. And so we need to be specific with our Title I funds. Those are additional funds, as well as our site discretionary. How does that support the vision for each school? Because that's going to look different, again, when it comes to Graham than it is to Birch Grove Primary. There's going to be different needs, and there's different results. Next steps for us, I'm going to come out with a parent newsletter in January. I'm also going to each school site to do a presentation with the dashboard, but also with the report card. So we'll circle back to the report card in 2020. And then let's have the honest conversation with our parents and community, as well as the staff. What are the disparities that we need to address honestly and urgently, because they require a sense of urgency for the well-being of our students? And how do we partner with stakeholders like I mentioned here tonight, Dublin, Castro Valley Unified, and Alameda County Office of Ed, and support the administrators and staff, not just to address the academic needs of our students, but the socio-emotional and mental health, because that is a pressing issue in 2019, and I think many of us know that through firsthand experience. I know that as a parent and as an educator, and so we need to support our counselors, our office staff, and other personnel to better serve and impact our students. And finally, I left, in addition to the California dashboard, a link to local resources. Each of the local indicators, as well as the state indicators, I made sure that there's a video in case any of the community members or board members would like to learn more or go deeper with an indicator. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oops. Thank you so much. Thank you. Board Member Gutierrez.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation. I did have a couple questions, and or not questions, maybe just concerns, because they were also briefly mentioned during our study session. But I do want to, would like to make the point right now that as I look at the suspension rate and with the focus of the primary schools, I think I would like if there to be a focus in regards to learning and researching more as to what are the causes for suspensions in primary schools. And here specifically, I'm looking at Birch Grove Intermediate and Birch Grove Primary. They're in the yellow. And my bigger concern comes with the primary. You know, we have K through 3 in the yellow of students getting suspended.
Mm-hmm.
I think there needs to be a better research and focus on that as to why are we suspending a first through third grader, and is there a better way to address such behavior issues? Same for every other school, specifically in the primary grade. And again, I know that they're based on their study session. There's a lot of work that you guys are doing towards that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to emphasize that. My next question is also toward looking at Bridgepoint. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at Bridgepoint, the idea here is that it's to help prepare students to graduate, to give them another way of being ready to graduate. However, that's not the case here. So what can we do, if anything, to change those colors? Because ultimately, if a student is going to Bridgepoint, we understand that they're having difficulties, and that may be one of the reasons why they're there. However, that school does provide a resource of plenty of resources to help you get the credits that you're missing, or get you to par. So, what's lacking there? You know, if that school is supposed to help you gain those credits, yet there's still the graduation and suspension rates are still, suspension, I understand it's a different factor, but the graduation rate is still not increasing, then something might be lacking. So you know, that's a concern. And again, this is not something that has a question, but an answer. The next one that I did have, and I'm looking at graduation rate for the high school, is I'm wondering if wanted you guys to consider the idea of possibly having more college credit courses within the high school.
Clarification, credit recovery?
No. So maybe a tie with Aloni, where we have some high school students that can take
Dual credits.
Thank you. That can provide you college credit. One of the concerns that I'm thinking here is there's a lot of students, senior graduate students going into colleges and universities. For example, I know Cal State East Bay. I want to say Cal State Hayward because that's what I'm used to. Cal State East Bay has, I believe it's the EOP program, where the summer prior to them attending, they're going there to kind of get caught up with courses or a refresher of whatever they need, so they can be up to par with first year student college students. Grateful for a program of that sort, but however, I feel need to be preparing our students to be ready for that first year.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my thoughts is if we help them already gain some college credit, they're going to get the experience of a college course and also get that boost of already getting some college credit. So if we can explore that idea of possibly bringing more courses, more classes to the high school to kind of help maybe boost that graduation rate.
Absolutely, and I know, Ms. Salinas, you're going to weigh in, but I think what this provides is leverage and opportunity to begin having those conversations, because you bring up something in terms of the primary grades, but also Bridgepoint. And at both levels, I think we need to explore programs so that the staff, which are working as hard as they can, have more support in place and more programs so that we can better increase the student results. I think when you speak about that dual credits, that exists. We know that's out there. So we need to tap into that and figure out partnerships, because I know, for instance, that exists at Chabot Community College, and that exists through Cal State East Bay, formerly Hayward. So, those opportunities, for instance, with Ohlone and with our local organizations are things we need to explore based on this data. It helps us, for instance, shine a spotlight on Bridgepoint. Or when you look at discipline grades 1 through 3, right? There should be systems and programs on the ground which allow us to provide alternatives and approach it from a mediation or restorative practice, because we're dealing with 6 and 7-year-olds.
Correct. And if I just, sorry, go ahead. Well, my final thought is, I know again it was addressed earlier, but I want to bring the point. If we can also do some more research amongst the students with disabilities and the reasons why they're getting suspension, whether that requires more research or more training on the staff's behalf.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I can add, in the month of January, I've already been in talks with Ohlone College and with their Director of Special Projects, and so we are looking at bringing back the MOU, so that we can, and I'm taking down notes, and I'll meet with Mr. Dolovich so we can share with Ohlone our openness to have more dual enrollment, dual credit classes.
Yeah.
Member Rodriguez, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask you a question about elementary, and you mentioned different schools. When you talked about, I'm trying to not to use Bunker, and Birch Grove primary. We're talking about just K2. So are we talking about all the students there, or when we look at these figures, or is it just first and second graders, or I'm just trying to have an understanding?
So your question is what grade levels are assessed? So we don't test CASP, so BGP won't have CASP scores, but we do count them in the chronic absenteeism, suspension rate. So we have to look at, and what I'm looking at right now, I think, is probably a combination. We have to see which dashboard they're using to inform. I know we were still trying to untangle with CDE that they were still melding both campuses, so we can follow up on that.
And then my next question on the alternative schools, Bridgepoint, their graduation rate was barely 50%, where Crossroads, which is the independent study, was doing a lot better. So is there something that we've learned there that we can try to kind of mesh, or, look at ways to kind of look at both and see if we can put something together that would improve, because we're serving some of the same children there. Some decide to come to Bridgepoint where they want to be at school up until noon, and then the others pick up the packets and then they drop them off. So maybe come up with something that's kind of in between, because I know that we've been looking at ways to deal with the fact that we have very few students, only around 70 or so at Bridgepoint, and we were looking at that. So I'm hoping that's part of a conversation that we're having.
We can usher in that conversation. One thing I would say, just to distinguish between the two, because Bridgepoint does have a low population, Crossroads has an even lower population, and you'll notice on the performance level that that's the reason why we don't have colors or levels for any of those state indicators.
Right.
And so it really is a less significant number. But I think if Crossroads has a program in place that can be replicated or adapted, then it's worth looking at.
Right. Thank you.
So I have a question about that. When I saw Bridgepoint, I think all of us were looking at Bridgepoint, but specifically when it calls out under English Language Arts, 165.3 points below standard, is that, I mean, is that a relevant number, or is that just saying, what does that mean?
I mean, that's a great question. I think the first one to ask is how many students were assessed?
Right.
Because it's not a significant number to yield a performance color. But it does say 165.3
Yeah, it's
points
very specific, right?
below
So-
standard.
Right.
Right.
But it gives us no color as to indicate which standard that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would require some further investigation. We can let you know.
Yeah,
Because we're only testing 11th graders also, so maybe very few 11th graders.
Mm-hmm. okay.
For instance, when I'm looking at the significant subgroups, the equity report states 0 in each
Yeah,
category.
exactly, yeah. So, I mean, I think that if we do look at the graduation rate, suspension rate, we all see that something's not working, right? And I think we have to say it out loud, and we have to say, we need to figure out what is that plan, and bring it back. I think that we've had a lot of really good discussion, and you all have shared some very specific things you're looking to do. I believe I asked you, Ms. Salinas, as well, let's make sure, and please, let's come back to us, or let's be specific about when we would expect to see some specific actions.
For the timeline.
So, right, your timing, right? So let's talk about whether it should be March. Is that too soon? When would we as a board start to see how we're going to start to look to incorporate some tactical solutions, if you will?
I'd like some time with Alameda County Office of Ed. So the good news is that they have put forward that they will continue to support us as they did with chronic absenteeism. So now we're looking at the data to see what area they will support us with. And two, for Bridgepoint, so they are going through their WASC accreditation right now, so they're doing their self-study. So although I know that Ms. Calderon will come forward with a spotlight, I'm going to work with Mr. Dolovich and with her to see if we can bring something sooner specific to Bridgepoint, because they've done so much work already as they're preparing for their WASC visit.
Okay.
So I'm thinking spring, but maybe we can give an update to the board through email after we meet with Alameda County office in January.
Okay, so January update?
Update and then with a plan.
Okay, and then hopefully spring, March with a plan.
And
Okay.
especially how we use this for the principals with planning their single plan for student achievement. And we're going to start that in 2020.
Sure. And I get it that we can't actually execute, but it's important to just start to share with us, with the community, here's what it's looking like as
Yeah.
early as possible.
And I think just the last point I would say for Ed Services, owning the results. And so these students are all of our students. And when you talk about suspension with a primary school, or you talk about Bridgepoint with respect to graduation rate, we have to own the results and figure out where we're going to drill down and be more strategic in supporting the needs of our students.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Bowen. I'm sorry?
Bowen has a comment.
Oh, sorry, that just popped up. I'm so sorry.
I
I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang.
Oh, just a small follow-up regarding the crossroll, because you said the crossroll number is pretty low, I guess. The 85.7% graduate. I think it's fair for me to speculate, just 6 out of 7 students graduate, probably you get that number.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Doesn't
right.
really represent a
Yeah. I mean, so it is worth noting if it's a significant number or if it's less than 10.
Member Nguyen?
I just want to say thank you for the presentation, and also I think that it's a great idea to have those town hall meetings or with parents and getting this information out there for them. I think that everybody is still trying to understand, what meeting standards mean and how we can move past just meeting standard and really excelling and exceeding standards. And I think that we would like to see that happen. And I think that it is going towards that way. And I hope that we can achieve that sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. So just a couple things on that point. I appreciate those insights. The last report card committee, we surfaced the idea of bringing back the 4. And I held a parent community meeting here at the district, and one of my takeaways from Ed Services was we need to get out to the sites because that's where we're really going to interact with the community. I had a handful of parents, but really I need to go to the respective communities, and that's going to be one of our focus areas in 2020, along with visiting the staff meetings, and so that we can increase the training and the communication with the staff.
Yeah, because I don't think that as parents, we don't get the buy-in as soon as possible, and communicating that so that we can bridge the communication between, helping our students excel, along with what the teachers are providing and stuff like that. I think that would really help.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Have a great break.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Okay, moving to item 9, employee organizations. Anybody here? Nope. See none. We move on to item 10, old business. We do have a speaker card. Sorry. Miss Cindy Parks.
Good evening. First of all, I want to say thank you for having this document. I think it's spelled out very well. I love this, especially the page that talks about the committee charge, because then anybody committing, they know what they're getting into. A lot of times, the committees are formed and people want to volunteer, but they're not sure what they're going to walk into. So this is great that you have it. But I do want to make note here that it's showing here that the timeline for the first meeting is in March. And to go along with some of the discussion that you had at the last meeting, very difficult to have a committee that's having their first meeting in March, and then anticipating financially that you're going to consolidate a school by the next school year. So, and I know that that was part of the discussion that you had at the last meeting. It was listed as a savings in the first interim. But one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention is on the actual committee member application form. Item number 6 just says parent of a student. And I know that previously a lot of the documents, back when my kids were here, it would always say parent and guardian, just to make sure that it's more inclusive. And then I know that there was kind of some joking when you guys were talking about forming the committee, because I was sitting in the back with Noelle Doot, and we're back there sitting going, and grandparents. So just for your consideration that there are some of us who our families are here. I mean, Newark is known for that, as having multi-generations still living in the same city. So maybe to make that a consideration, that, to just be more inclusive. So, but especially guardians. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's included down at the bottom.
So, Ms. Dela Cruz will be speaking to it, and Ms. Dela Cruz, if you could just comment on the request. Yeah.
So in the application, it does say parent guardian of at least one child?
It does,
Yes.
but
So
not in
what is
number
it?
6. That is correct. So Ms. Parks is correct. I think it's just an oversight.
Just the item number 6.
Item number 6.
On the actual application.
On the
does not say that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But down
It's
at the
just-
bottom, if you read down
Yes,
after
you're right.
7, 8,
Yes.
yeah, there's,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's just.
We can clarify that.
Yeah.
That's an
Thank
easy
you,
fix.
Ms. Parks, for bringing
Our
that up.
intent was parent guardian.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Dela Cruz, yes. Mhm.
Yes, so at the last board meeting, the board approved the formation of the School Consolidation Advisory Committee. So we would like to continue that discussion. We need to assign 2 board members to the committee. We didn't do that at the last meeting. And then to review the 2 documents that does show the purpose of the committee, the makeup of the committee, and the proposed timeline. So this is all in draft form because we haven't had a chance to discuss, and gives the board the opportunity to discuss all of these items. And also, some of the other items that we wanted to talk about was the potential of having a facilitator for the meeting and the possible dates for the meetings, I mean, the timelines that are spelled out.
Is that all that you had for us? Okay.
And I think I can add that a part of the discussion was to give it more parameters, so we wanted to bring this forward as a draft form. Also knowing that this timeline was rolled out in order to really have a thoughtful process to ensure that we have facilitators to really do this work. We do anticipate, I know Ms. Dela Cruz is well aware of us having to perhaps look at other reductions that will have to take place because it is a very ambitious, that's true, our speaker is correct, if we were to first meet in March. So we are aware of that as well.
And I do recall that was one of the concerns in that the first interim, and one of the reasons why the board changed the certification to qualified was because of the timeline. And I did point out that if we were planning to close the school in the fall, that we would have to make a decision in the spring. And obviously, we're very close to that now, and the possibility of that happening is very small now. And we probably will need to identify other reductions because we may not make the fall timeline in terms of consolidating schools and possibly closing one.
Got it. So the action that you are requesting is the assignment of the 2 board members?
Yes.
Okay.
And then for the board to have the discussion, and if there are any decisions that need to be made in terms of, for example, if parents are going to be represented, how many are we thinking? Are we thinking should there be 1 for each school, or are we thinking, maybe 4 overall to be part of the committee? Those types of details need to be sorted out.
Okay. Mr. Zhang?
Oh, just a quick question. So we talk about member of the public can also apply to this committee, and they will fall under the landowner or renter category. Is that correct? If
Well,
just a regular member of the public.
No, if you look at the committee composition on the attachment, we have specified community representatives, and the 3 at-large community members is where we would be looking at business community or homeowners or neighborhood associations, senior citizens, things. Yeah, and the board would be, the applicant would be identifying what category they were applying under.
And can there be more than 1 category that he's applying? Yes, right? It can be multiple category, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you could be a parent who's also a business owner.
And a homeowner.
And a homeowner. Okay, is that all, Mr. Zhang? Ms. Gutierrez, Member Gutierrez?
Thank you. I did want to bring in state my opinion that I think I would recommend that we do have a parent representation from each school. I think it's important that that we do have that, whatever way is best, whether it becomes a PTA parent or I'm sure you guys can decide that, but I do think it is important, especially because at this point, there is no one school in mind. I think all schools need to be really thoroughly looked at, and we really need to have parent engagement from each school. And to add to that, I would like to also demonstrate my interest in being part of the committee.
Thank you. You beat me to it. I was going to ask fellow board members, is there anybody on the committee that, as Member Gutierrez expressed, would like to be part of this committee? Member Fong? Member Nguyen, sorry.
It's funny because, can I say this? In closed session, I told them that I'm very informal, so I use their first names. So it's totally fine. I can totally
We'll
be
get it.
Member Fong.
We'll get it right.
I actually prefer that.
Yeah.
But yes, I would like to be on the committee as well.
Okay.
I will vice chair. You can be chair.
Well, we have our two members, Member Gutierrez and Member Nguyen. Unless,
We can Rochambeau it.
were,
No.
okay, no, I was interested, but of course I acquiesced to Member Gutierrez and Member Nguyen. Of course, I would like to be part of the discussions as much as possible.
Would you like to take action on that?
So can I get a motion and a second? And with the action being that Member Gutierrez and Member Nguyen will be the chair and vice chair of the committee? Can I get a motion?
I second it.
I move that we accept myself and Member Nguyen as assigned board committee members.
I second it.
And let's vote. So 5 ayes. Thank you.
And then in terms of the meeting facilitator, what is the preference of the board or any thoughts on that?
If I may, oh, sorry, I see.
Member Nguyen.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, no, it was for earlier. We're fine.
Oh, that was the earlier
Yeah.
comment. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then,
and-
if I may, sorry, I would like to express how important it is that these meetings get conducted properly, and have proper procedure for it. I think it's important that we have someone who can facilitate to the extent that, the community, the opinion of the community is expressed and heard and jotted down. However, I do want to advise that hiring out a facilitator does have some financial implications. So I'm open to both. Just want to make sure that we have all the information on the table.
Do we have any sense of potential cost for a facilitator?
Not at this time, but I do have some contacts who have gone through this process and have some references that I could certainly do the research and let you know.
Right.
in the next meeting.
Does that really need to be a paid facilitator? What about other, like, say, very respected community member that's willing to volunteer, but not necessarily a super expert on school closure?
My thought is, you'd want somebody who's experienced in facilitating meetings.
That was actually my
Yeah.
question. Do we need someone who's experienced in closing schools or just experienced in facilitating meetings? Or both?
Preferably both.
Okay.
Right, and
For
that,
sure.
yes, thank you for that. I think I didn't complete my question, because I think it's not just how much does a certain type of resource cost, but rather somebody with the experience. So, I think though, we all believe that we should have guidance in these meetings so that they are productive, and that we do ensure that everyone is heard, and that we actually move down the path of a decision, right? Because many times a meeting can kind of go round and round. So I would like to see us do some research, actually understand somebody with experience. What would the potential cost be for bringing in somebody like that with the intent that we would like to have somebody? Yeah.
We'll follow up
Okay.
on that. And I can bring something back at the next meeting.
That would be great. So we would look to have it on the July 16th meeting to do some follow-up on that. Sorry, January.
January. In fact,
Thinking it's the summer.
Going on a
yes.
lunch break.
In fact, that is on the timeline to consider hiring the facilitator and what the selection process would be for committee members as well.
Okay,
So that's the other area
Fantastic.
of conversation.
fantastic. Okay, that will give us enough information, I think, to form an opinion as to whether we would like to hire. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Dela Cruz? Anything else, Ms. Dela Cruz?
I have one question, sorry. So, since we got the 2 board members assigned, and then if we approve the draft tonight, will the applications go out to the community so that they can apply to be on the committee as soon as possible?
Yes, if that's your desire.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Is there
So-
anything in
so-
the draft that you want to change other than the clarification on the parent-guardian section?
Anybody, any other amendments? Okay.
If there are no changes, I can finalize that.
Should we ask Ms.
Okay.
Parks?
So, no.
To answer your question, Ms. De La Cruz, and I think that with that addition of number 6, adding parent/guardian of students attending New York schools, I believe everything else looks good, and I'm ready to move. So with that,
Yes, can I get a motion and a second, please?
so with that, I move that we vote to accept the school consolidation committee information and the application with the added word of guardian
On number 6.
on number 6.
Yes, number 6. Can I get a second, please?
I second.
Okay. Please vote. Okay, 5 ayes. Thank you. Anything else on this one? I'm sorry, I know that there are different components, so I'm just looking to you if we left anything out. Mhm.
I think that's all I have, and we will look at after the holidays in terms of sending out the applications.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to new business, item 11.1, Newark Junior High School Gates, and we do have a speaker, Ms. Parks.
I watched the last board meeting, and Mr. Zhang was very concerned about having the Measure G study session. And I remembered him saying, don't bring us any more items unless we have our update on Measure G. Then I look at the agenda, and this is Measure G again. Another item that caught my eye was the fact that it says that it was budgeted. And I have the document that the board approved on October 2018, and this item is in here. I didn't see contained within the document itself whether this is being done. I mean, I know that there was talk about it because I actually had a parent who asked me if I'd heard anything a couple months ago. But there's nothing in here that says, is this going to be done to secure the campus? Are you doing this to lock all the gates so the kids are all locked inside? And you need panic bars because now in order to lock those gates, I mean, I can remember, you know, they would do chains around some of them and put a lock. Are you doing it to secure the campus? And in order to not have that type of situation, you need the push bars. Because there isn't that kind of dialogue in here. It's not clear on why this is being done. And then if this is the reason, if the campus is going to be secure, where the office is not accessible, which Ms. Aquino would know, for the office staff, you know, you're locked out in the parking lot then. So I think that there's a lot of unknowns to this, but the bigger issue is the funding source for it. And I know with Mr. Zhang being so concerned about it, what I wanted to bring to your attention, and this is something that because I was on the CBOC for several years, is the fact that there is still a little bit of Measure B money left over. And it actually caused us a few little problem in our audit report because when they would audit Fund 21, we would only be looking to do our annual report on our Measure G money, and there was still that little bit of Measure B. And that little bit of Measure B was used by Mr. Richards to clear up some of the DSA, because when Measure B passed back in '97, all those projects were done. Well, not all of them went through DSA and got approval. And so there was a couple $100,000, and when Vanner came in, they were also going through and they were clearing up some of those. So there's now 55,462.73 left of Measure B. And so I don't know if that takes a little bit of the hurt out of how much money is coming out of Measure G, that it wasn't a part of the original list, but I just wanted to mention that. The money's just sitting there. Clearly all of Measure B now is cleaned out, and just to clear out that account from a bond that's 20 years ago. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we have some discussion, can I get a motion and a second on this item?
I'd like to have Ms. Condon come up so we can ask her some questions.
Okay.
If that's possible. I mean, I don't mind making a motion, so
Yes.
I can make the motion for discussion.
Motion. Can I get a second?
Do we really have because I don't remember we made motion before having any discussions.
Right. So we will cover that in tomorrow's training.
Okay, I see.
But we are looking to try to standardize, and before discussion, we'd like to ask for a motion and a second.
I move that we vote on item 11.1.
I second.
Okay, so Member Zhang, please, for discussion.
So
Oh.
just,
Sorry.
I guess I would ask,
I'll let him ask the question, and then we have to go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think one comment I want to make is just like last time, I think the entire board was asking for a study session for the Measure G bond a couple months ago, and I think I got Mr. Patch's verbal agreement that we're not going to bring anything forward unless we really know what money in Measure G can be legally spent, because we don't really want to spend something that is outside of the jurisdiction of what the board approved last October of 2018. Second thing, I actually do want to ask Member Rodriguez, because 1997 one member of the public mentioned the Measure B fund. You were the only one there, so do you have any do you have any knowledge about?
I love Measure B. That's how we fixed a lot of the schools and the multipurpose. But I think that we've had that money in there, so did you get a chance to look at that as far as using some of that money? Ms. Dela Cruz?
Yeah, there's about 56,000 in that fund at this time.
Yeah. Unless you have other plans
didn't-
for it, it would be nice to just use it, and so we can kind of, move on.
Yeah,
from
we're
Measure
aware
B.
that the funding is there, and we were planning on making some plans to use that money. But for the gates, it wouldn't be enough to cover, and we don't want to split code
Okay.
that project.
Okay, understand. Okay. Measure B was, again, Mr. John, it was something that the community really came together, and I think we passed it by about 80%, and it was good times. And the reason why we still have money there is because, we got interest and everything, but it's nice to have it. So I'll be looking forward to see what projects or what one project you'll be using those funds, But as far as this one's concerned, can we use Measure G money to pay for these gates?
Yes, it is part of the safety and security that's in the language.
Right, and this is a safety or security issue? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and Ms. Condon, I know it is in the description, but if you can please join us and just speak to that a bit more. A few of us I know have taken a tour of the campus, so a couple of us specifically know what these, but maybe tell the rest of the board.
So
bit more.
these gates are the same gates that are going into the other schools. Some of the schools have used the funding from their wish list money. I don't know where the other monies came from. I came in two of those gates as the director. We've been asked by the superintendent and parents regarding the safety of the school and that there's open entries, and they feel that why don't they have the gates like the other schools have with the safety push bars, which means those gates will be locked they will be open during the day, but only accessible from the inside out. So they will be exactly the way the rest of the school district will be. There's still another school or two that do not have gates, so you might want to think about that if this is going to be a main thing for Newark Unified. But it is due to the safety of the children, the security of the staff.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, Member Gutierrez.
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Condon. A couple questions, more of the general. Can you briefly describe the area or the location of where the gates will be placed?
All the entries. You've got the west side, the east side, which I believe, Charmy, you might want to help me on this. You've got the front, which have the sliding gate doors, Lafayette, which will be eliminated down to the push bars opening. There won't be a rolling anymore.
Okay.
That'll be the first thing that goes. There's also east side and west side, which I believe are on the sides of the parking lot and the other side by the baseball. Okay? And I think there's also two in the back.
Yes.
The L.
Yes.
Correct. So it should be on the whole,
The perimeter.
the perimeter of the school district.
And just to address the comment that was made that it'll affect the office.
I don't know how it would affect, why it would affect the office. I don't understand that question.
Ms. Aquino?
Because it's going to be on the Lafayette side, actually, office staff can go out the side door and out of that in case of an emergency. That would actually be their exit. What it does do is it is safer because no one can come into those gates during school hours. So that's actually a great feature.
Right. Yeah, and I would guess that the comment was more, when folks are trying to get into the school, how do they get in?
Correct, and that is, that could be if it's in like our summer months and things like that, the UPS drivers, but again, we make provisions, for them based on those
Right,
times.
and I think we should consider, though, there has to be some sort, I'm just going to use myself as an example. Yesterday, I picked up my daughter before school got out. She had an orthodontic appointment, so Ms. Condon, I assume we're going to have some sort of a buzzer or something to allow folks, or, otherwise, how does office staff know that someone's trying to get in, a parent?
That isn't in the gating, but I'm sure we can add it for to get into the school. I think anybody arriving at the school or coming to the school should be notifying the office anyway that they're coming in. So whether we have an alarm system out there, like you have home and kind of buzzer and say, I'm here, I don't know.
I think it has to be more concrete because,
Yeah.
Again, I called and I said, I'll be approximately there in 10 minutes. So but the staff can't be there waiting, right? So that would be a request that we do need to, come up with a follow-up solution for that.
If I may choose, point of order, the campus monitors on campus also are constantly monitoring the campus. So if somebody's always in that quad area where they can see coming, the main entrance comes from the parking lot, which is where they should be. And so I'm sure they'll have it where they can be noticed, and then they can see on the cameras as well. But the campus monitors are always out.
Gotcha, but I still we'd need to have a formal process that would get communicated. So I get it that I think that we have potential solutions. We need, that should be part of the implementation plan.
Yeah, because at the elementary schools, the office is not locked up.
Exactly.
So we can add something like that there. That's not part of the gating quote, but it's something that I think we could look into and bring to the board.
Got it. And just to finish off, I know this might be minor, but the color, do you know if it's going to be?
We will be getting it, whatever color they decide. They've used a lot of times to match the school. Some of them did black, some of them did blue. We actually, if you approve this tonight, we will be following through with a meeting with the principal and the gate gentleman when we come back in January, first week in January, so we could go over all the fine tooth colors and all that
And I know
stuff.
my own personal opinion to this does not matter, but I will state it anyway, which is if we can stay away from black, I think it gives a very different view. So currently, I know that they are beige or the cream color of the school. I think that's better. And also, I did want to just ditto Member Martinez that we do need a standardized process for parents, because even just having a yard duty around, and as a parent, or sometimes you're reaching out for an emergency basis, and you need to get in there quick. We can't be waiting outside and yelling or looking or calling and not getting a hold. So there definitely needs to be a standardized process and communication to the community if possible. Thank you, Ms. Salinas.
No, that's okay. All right, if there's no more discussion, can you please?
Call for the question.
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to call for the question? Call for the vote?
Oh, yeah, well, I was about to do that. Sorry, it's taken me a minute, but if there is no more discussion, I would like to, ask that we vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Condon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
And Ms. Aquino.
Okay, so, the vote is 3 ayes to 2 nays, so the, we have approval for the proposal. Thank you. I know historically, we allow board members to speak if there is a no vote. Would you, either Member Zhang or Member Nguyen would like to speak?
Well, my novel still has to do with I don't really have a very clear picture about overall what Measure G can be spent on. And another thing is, 2 months ago when ADIS was here, when we talked about the EMG report, they did talk about the gates on Newark Junior High. It was not related to this one. I don't think they think this is a problem. And the overall maintenance in the next 10-year span on that gate was only $23,000. So for me, this $86,000 right out of the gate, yeah, I probably need more information to vote yes.
Thank you.
And I just need, like, I would like to see them get the new gates. I just would like that when we consider these options, that we think things all the way through, in terms of how parents are gonna get in terms of, are we gonna have new key card system in place for the teachers to get in and out? And also, are the office staff gonna be able to buzz parents in? Those are all kind of common sense, and we're missing out on those items. So for me, that's not a comprehensive proposal enough for me to vote on. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, and definitely appreciate the comments. I think that, they're very, very valid points in terms of, in the future, our expectation is a complete plan. When we are looking at safety concerns, absolutely, we want to make sure we don't, cause any additional delay, but that is something that we would ask that you bring back. Okay. Moving on to item 11.2, verbal summary of the financial terms of the employment agreement for the acting superintendent. And I do not have a speaker card for that.
Then I move that we vote on item 13.3.
Can I get a second?
You have to
Sorry,
read
my
before the vote.
apologies.
I will take it. This is 11.2. Yes, just the verbal summary.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. My apologies, I'm getting ahead of myself.
We're getting excited because we're moving quickly. Thank you. So I will actually read. Please bear with me. It is a long document, but I need to read the document in its entirety. This is the Brown Act requirement for approval of executive contracts that are to be read in open session before the contract is approved. The law requires that the board provide a verbal summary of the financial terms in any executive contract or amendment to an executive contract before the board takes action on such contract or amendment. In compliance with this requirement, the board would like to announce that the district is approving a contract with Leticia Salinas to serve as the acting superintendent for the remainder of the 1920 school year. The employment agreement contains the following financial terms. For the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year, unless terminated earlier, the acting superintendent's annual base salary shall be $210,892 beginning December 19th, 2019. The acting superintendent will receive a stipend for the possession of a master's degree of $1,000 and an additional $1,200 for the possession of a doctorate degree. The district will allocate up to $5,000 for the acting superintendent to use for conference and/or coaching and mentoring services. The acting superintendent shall be required to render 225 workdays of full and regular service to the district. Days worked in excess of 225 are considered non-work days, and the superintendent is not entitled to overtime pay nor vacation pay for non-work days. The acting superintendent will earn sick leave at the rate of 1 day per month. Earned unused sick leave may be accumulated without limitation. The acting superintendent shall be given an additional 5 days of sick leave, which will be placed in a separate account and used only if the number of sick leave days she has earned and accrued are insufficient to provide her with coverage in the event of her inability to perform her duties. As currently the associate superintendent for the district, acting superintendent would have been entitled to these additional sick leave days. Under no circumstances will the district be obligated to compensate the acting superintendent for any earned, unused sick leave. The acting superintendent shall continue to be eligible to participate in health, dental, and vision benefits for the district's health benefit providers on the same terms and conditions as offered to the other cabinet-level employees. The superintendent will be reimbursed for actual and necessary expenses incurred within the scope of her employment, so long as such expenses are permitted by district policy or incurred with prior board approval. The district will pay the superintendent's membership dues for the Association of California School Administrators and or other professional organization of her choosing, not to exceed a cost of $2,500 per year. When the contract is terminated or expires, the acting superintendent will have the right to return to her previous position as associate superintendent in the district. With prior board approval, acting superintendent may engage in outside professional activities as long as such activities occur outside the acting superintendent's workdays and are not in conflict with the interest of the district. The district has agreed to indemnify and hold the acting superintendent harmless in the event she is sued for any incident arising out of the course and scope of her employment as acting superintendent. So having said that, we can move on to the next item, which is the voting on the actual contract, which is, so item 11.3 is the approval of the employment agreement for the acting superintendent. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
I move that we vote on item 11.3.
Second.
Any comments? If not, I will open voting. Please vote.
I do have.
Oh.
No, just before we vote. It looks a little bit confusing because we're using the date of December 19th to the end of the year, and yet we're talking about basically a 12-month contract. So it tends to be a little confusing, but this was drawn up based on the format, based on her contract now. And
Oh, the annualized, I'm sorry.
Right,
The
right.
annualized number, yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
so, it tends to, instead of it kind of just taking the difference between now and the end of the year. But I understand why this was done that way. It just, tends to be a little confusing a little bit.
Yeah.
So this will be added to her regular contract, right?
It's based on current Yes, current
Right,
base
right.
pay.
So basically, she still has the contract.
This is an annualized number, so she would be, we would pay her through the end of the.
Right.
At this annualized rate.
Yeah, because her contract's good to 2021.
No, this is a contract specifically,
This
we are
is
only
different.
speaking, yes, it's.
Right,
okay,
this is different.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, got it.
Mhm.
Okay, ready to vote.
okay. Okay. And the action passes, 5 ayes. Thank you. Ms. Salinas, would you like to address the board, please?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to share my thanks for the confidence you're placing in me and also to the community. My main objective is to build on the success of our students and our staff. And I know that moving forward, we continue to work. We go to school every day. We teach our kids. We support our staff. And I look forward to be able to continue to serve Newark Unified as we make this transition and continue to build again on success. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Thank you for accepting to take on this endeavor. We are here to support, so please come to us as needed. Thank you.
What's the term, be careful what you wish for?
And that is it for new business, as we did pull item 11.4. So moving on to item number 12, consent agenda. I'm sorry, yes, personnel report. Can I get a motion and a second on this item?
So move.
I second.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I have a question.
I'm sorry, am I getting a question here?
13.2.
This just came in. Okay, so one of the things we stated was that we would not be taking ad hoc requests, so again, we will not be able to take this last card.
This is 13 point.
Oh, no, she wants to speak on the warrant report.
Yeah, not this, not the one we're voting.
No, it's more of a timing issue. At the beginning of the meeting, I talked about speaker cards need to be submitted upon arrival or at the beginning of the meeting, so.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So that's, no, I'll talk later on that.
Sure. So we are now on item 12.1, personnel report. I think, did we get a motion in a second? I'm sorry.
I moved Member Rodriguez second, and I Member Nguyen has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Member Nguyen.
In regards to staffing at the sites, when there is like an absent employee, how do we fill temporary positions or relieve office staff? If, like, the office manager, you usually have, like at the elementary school sites, you have an office manager and then you have an office clerk. So if the office clerk is out for the day, do we have enough temporary staff to fill those positions?
That's correct. We actually, like what we do with certified employees, we also have a small pool of substitute clerical staff that attends to the schools that need it.
Okay, and that request is always made?
Yes, as soon as we know of an absence, and the correct process is for them to document their absence on ASAP and on our automated system, then it automatically lets us know that a substitute is needed.
Okay, so if a person calls in sick that day, do you send a substitute for them?
As soon as we catch it, if the person is calling in sick after 7 o'clock, then it does take a little bit of time to find a replacement for the person.
But a replacement is always available?
Not always.
Okay.
It depends.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so I will open voting. Please vote on item 12.1, personnel report. And the personnel report is approved, 5 ayes. Moving on to item 13, the consent agenda, non-personnel items.
I would like to discuss 13.3.
Okay.
If we can pull that item now.
You'd like to pull item
13.3, yeah.
Got it. So can I get a motion and a second to approve 13.1 and 13 through 13.5 with the exception of 13.3?
I move that we approve 13.1, 13.2, 13.4, and 13.5.
I second.
Just a point of clarification, so do we vote on these items and then come back, or do we have this? Yes, okay. So I have open voting. Can we please vote on 13.1 through 13.5 with the exception of 13.3? Please vote. And those items are approved with 5 ayes. So we will now open discussion on item 13.3. Member Jean?
I just want to follow up on the email that were forwarded to the board regarding the 3% direct cost. And yeah, I do want to note, because based on the information I got, the direct cost is the cost of an employee going there to collect the money. And it looks like the cost is almost 100,000, 3% of the thing. So can we get more information about that?
The 3% covers the cost for administering, collecting the fees. So that would include our time to address any questions from the community. We get calls about fees that need to be collected, and then when the developer comes in to pay the fees, it includes depositing the fees, us having to run reports. So there's several steps involved in collecting fees that's justified.
So are you collecting the fees from the city of Newark, or do they come here to pay fees?
They come here.
Okay.
So every individual that has a development, whether it's a commercial or residential, we deal with all of them. We deal with the questions, we deal with, again, residents coming back and forth, and phone calls, whatever it takes, including the time to get our justification studies and researching and updating the fees.
So my question is, why don't we partner with the city of Newark and work with them? Because when they have developers come in, they have to pay permitting fees and all these developer fees. Why can't we tag on to a fee that you got for the district, whatever fee it is that you guys want to collect, and then they actually do all the work for us?
Yeah, it's part of the process. Every district
Okay.
goes through it. They send them to the district to collect the fees.
Okay.
And I think what I hear you saying, it's not a transactional cost, right? It's not that literally I went and it took me an hour to, I mean, if you think about typical business processes, right? You have to have a structure set up to manage these accounts, to manage, any movement, frankly, any administration, the entire overhead structure, really. I mean, that touches this. So I see where it's not necessarily just a transactional cost. So I think it's hard to, put your hands around that specific one. But I think that at the end of the day, do we have a concern that our estimate is excessive?
What about the past estimate? Because this is just one data point. What about, I'm pretty sure we started collecting developer fees 3-4 years ago when this housing boom started. Do you have any other data points what about the initial 2016, 2017, the direct costs on that? Or are they similar, or they're?
My understanding is in some prior years, the 3% was not applied for whatever reason. it's allowable by Ed Code. It's also something that the County Office of Education had pointed out to us in terms of us being allowed to take that 3% and recognizing that in some prior years it wasn't applied. I
So, yeah,
can't
so
tell
what?
you why.
Yeah, so what does that mean by not applied?
It means that it wasn't charged. The direct cost wasn't, because it's a charge that transfers to our general fund to help cover these costs. So it's,
So
if you really
in
think
prior
about
year,
it,
there's no
it was
charge.
almost a
And
loss.
last year there was a
Something that
charge.
we basically
hadn't-
take advantage of.
I see, I see.
Exactly, that's what it sounds like.
You want it.
Yes, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
And,
Because it helps, it offsets the cost of my staff having to
see.
administer and collect these fees.
That's
And
what I'm saying. Can we just have it
It's a
be
good thing.
collected for us and then they give us a
Right.
check every month?
I do have some other questions regarding the fees. So I see this level 1 assessed fees. We have the same assessed fee for residential development, whether it's condo, apartment, or single family home, right? Is that correct?
Well, I really can't tell you all the details.
I see.
I'd have to look into that.
And there will be no difference between rental properties or for sale property, right?
Right.
I see. And last question is, we do have the flexibility of, say, negotiating this developer fee with the developer in exchange for some other services that will benefit our district, right? For example, we do have the flexibility of, say, like, waive the in lieu fee in exchange for, say, employee housing. That's a possibility, right?
Sure.
Okay.
That would be a special agreement.
And Ms. De La Cruz, is it always a 3% or can we increase, or are we allowed to increase that percentage fee?
It's not to exceed 3%. 3% is the maximum that we can apply.
Any other discussion or comments? Member Rodriguez?
Just so the board knows, a few years ago, we asked Mr. Richards to look at ways that we could get more money from developer fees and change the tier of and we're maxed out. So we did try, because we felt with that we should be able to get more. But because I know some other school districts, for whatever reason, are able to get more. But it is what it is, and we're getting the most. So, and there is a lot of building going on, which is nice. Okay.
Thank you, Board Member Rodriguez. And if there are no additional comments or questions, can I have a motion and a second to vote on item 13.3?
Normally, the board member that pulls it, but I mean that's up to you, Youth President. Now.
I move that we approve resolution number 2053.
I second.
Please vote. And the resolution passes with 5 ayes.
We're doing pretty good. Look at that.
Looking good on time. With that, we move to the item 14 with student expulsions. So we'll vote on each of these independently. Item 14.1, termination of expulsion order E1819-13.
I move that we accept staff recommendation on 14.1.
I'll second it.
And I will open voting. Please vote. Item 14.1 passes with 5 ayes. Item 14.2, continuation of expulsion order E1920-03. Motion and a second, please.
I move that we vote on 14.2.
I second.
And I will open voting with Member Gutierrez moving and Member Nguyen second. And so item 14.2 passes with 4 ayes and 1 no. Member Gutierrez, would you like to comment?
Not right now, thank you.
Thank you. Item 14.3, continuation of expulsion order E1920-05. Can I get a motion and a second?
I move that we vote on 14.3.
I second.
Okay.
I had something I wanted to say on, I know that we normally will ask the member that says, that votes no to comment. Maybe we can talk about this at tomorrow's meeting, because with expulsions, normally we don't do that because it's all confidential. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote. Okay. Motion, item 14.3 passes with 4 ayes and 1 no. Item 14.4, continuation of expulsion order E1718-11.
I move that we vote on 14.4.
Can I get a second, please? I'll second. Please vote on item 14.4. Item 14.4 does not pass. 2 votes aye, and 3 with a no. So I would direct staff to bring this back. Typically, I know that this happened in the past, so it does not come back.
It does not come back. So we just, on staff, on the vote, we will just notify the family.
Okay. Just a point of clarification, in this instance, then, this was a continuation, as an effect, just so that we understand?
So my understanding is that the student will revert back to their home school.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 14.5, continuation of expulsion order E1819-17. Can I get a motion and a second?
For the continuation of expulsion order.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Please vote. Item 14.5 is approved with 4 ayes and 1 no.
I have a question, though.
Sure. Member Nguyen?
Ms. Salinas, on 14.4, if the student wishes to stay at the alternative school, even though we voted to send him back to the home, or her back to the home school.
That's a good question.
Without saying more, I can look into it, but.
Right.
Yeah, we can't get into specifics.
Okay.
But my understanding is, the way that the vote goes, if you don't accept staff recommendation, they revert back to homeschool.
Right.
Okay.
So in essence, the question is, does the student
Have a choice.
Have a choice.
I will have to look into that. I believe it. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we go to item 15, the Board of Education Committee reports, announcements, requests, debrief, and discussions. So we would start with Member Rodriguez.
Hold on. Hold on. I want to commend the board on going through a difficult process. It seems like everything we do nowadays is a process. And moving forward, we're going to be embarking on a superintendent search, which is the most important thing that we do, is hire a superintendent. And so it's very important that as we go through this, that all 5 board members would attend the different meetings that we have. I'd also like to say with what we have tomorrow, when a new president takes over, I remember Crocker telling me when I took over as president, saying, this doesn't entitle you to change everything we're doing. So we refer back to the governor's handbook. And I'm not saying I disagree with the changes, President Martinez. All I'm saying is that if we could discuss it tomorrow and look at the governor's handbook, and I want to make sure that, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be available to us tomorrow. If we can, as a unit, if we can buy in on some of the things you want to do, and I'm sure you have a reason why you want to make some minor changes as president, I think it's just going to make us stronger. So hopefully the conversation tomorrow we'll be able to talk about it. Okay. I got a chance to do Santa. There was no Mrs. Claus. She couldn't be there with
Santa's
us.
helper?
Right.
Santa's helper got to be Santa's helper.
Right, Santa's helper, right. I'm Santa's helper, and there's a bunch of us around. So, with the special needs kids, and it's always a great experience. It's mostly high school kids, and it's supposed to be the three cities, but it's hard sometimes, especially with Newark, where we don't have busing to get the kids over there. So it's mostly the Fremont schools. And on Saturday at 11 o'clock, Love Newark's got the Adopt a Family project that they adopt anywhere from 10 to 15 families and their kids, and they get presents and all that stuff. So I will be Santa's helper at that meeting also, at the end of Central for Love Newark. I want to take this opportunity to wish all of you, well, we'll see you tomorrow anyway, happy holidays, and thank you again for putting yourselves out there and to serve our kids and our community. I appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Member Nguyen?
I would just like to say it is the end of the year, and I hope everyone takes this time to do a little self-reflection. I try to do that every year, and how I can better prepare myself for next year, and how I could be a better person, and how I can better serve the community and my family and my kids and my family and friends. And I wish you all a wonderful Christmas holiday break. I know it's well-deserved. I think everybody gets recharged and relax and come into the new year ready to go. Have a wonderful, wonderful break. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Zhang?
So, 9 days ago, I happened to drop in as a silent observer at the Memorial High PTSA meeting, Parent Teacher Student Association meeting, and I was glad that they're finally building up the organization and increasing the parent engagement, and they were having a record fundraising year so far, and I wish them to continue their strong fundraising pace, and hopefully they can, once they close the entire school year, they have a record-breaking year when it comes to fundraising. And last Friday night, I went to attend the Memorial High Quorum concert, which I bumped into Member Rodriguez with your wonderful 3 grandkids and 1 great-grandkid, even though they're the same age to me. Yeah, I think our students performed very well. And my personal favorite is the Over the Rainbow, which was the first one, yeah. Feedback for that concert, $7 in cash. I had to find one $5 bill, 4 quarters, and borrow $1 cash from the other person, because I even told him, I said, you want to welcome these people to show your concert. We don't carry that much cash. you gotta find some way to accept electronic payment.
I brought money.
No, they need to take it square. That's what you're saying.
And speaking of personal reflections, I will be traveling to Hawaii next week with my parents, and I just encourage people my age or even older, like if you get a chance, go travel with your parents when they can still travel with you. Anytime you travel with them, you have one less chance of travel with them. Anytime you travel with them, it may very well be your last time in your life that you can travel to one. Whether you are married or not, you have kids or not. I mean, you don't want to wait until the moment when you ask them to travel with you and they say, sorry, our body will not allow us to travel with you anymore. So, and other than that, I just wish everybody a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. Member Gutierrez.
I want to congratulate Member Martinez on her first meeting as president. And also commend her on the effort to try and follow procedure and get us into the practice of following procedure as much as possible. I know we are creatures of habit, and it might be difficult for us, but we'll get there. And I would like to wish everybody a great winter holiday of every sort, and as well a happy new year to our staff, our teachers, and our students especially. And oh, and thank you, Ms. Salinas, for putting on the restorative justice presentation. Very informative. I know we still have a lot of work, and I know you guys and you and your team are working at it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, on a personal note, thank you so much for your patience. It is my first meeting. Member Fong. I will try to not be as, I'll try to get in a rhythm where things come a bit more natural to me, but I really appreciate all the support you all have provided leading up to this meeting. In the spirit of standardization and really trying to make these meetings as productive for everybody. We do have a training session tomorrow that's a special meeting. It is in open session meetings, so folks are welcome to attend. And again, a lot of the focus will be around our parliamentary procedures, making sure we do always our best effort to be in compliance with the Brown Act, and just really being thoughtful about how we use each other's time. That is our intention. I will speak very frankly, because I think it's important that we all recognize this, is we spend a ton of time making sure we aren't caught in an error. And I think that it's be really important that we all assume positive intent in a lot of setting up these meetings. Recognize we have a lot of gaps to close in terms of just past practices, past behaviors, but I'm really looking forward to folks, giving us that opportunity to bring that excellence in the way we do things. So welcome any of you to tomorrow's training session. One of the things that we do need to speak to is regarding the search for the superintendent. So I will be asking for us to put a special meeting on the calendar to discuss the search process. Anything that is related to the search process, whether we are going to retain a search firm, how we're going to make the decision on the search firm, how do we want to actually deliver requirements to the search firm. All that has to happen in open session. So we will be looking to put that on the calendar as soon as we get back from winter break.
Can we discuss that now as far as when we're available?
Sure. From just calendaring it.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just given timing, it would be great if we could do it the first week that we're back from break, which is the week of the 6th. Would you all have availability that week of the 6th?
January 9th sounds like a great day if the rest of the team's available.
That's the day I'm flying out.
Okay.
So I'm okay if we do it, let's say, from 3 to 6. January the 8th would be better for me, because then I'm free all day. In case we decide to, we're just going to be talking about the process. It should be a pretty simple.
January 8th is fine by myself.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the interviews, because originally we were going to be doing the interviews at that time. So if we're just going to be talking about the search firm, the 9th is fine, because it shouldn't take more than a half hour or so, hopefully.
Does that work for you, for you all?
So either one, 8th or 9th.
So let's, why don't we do this? Think about it. I know that, you know, for those that are, that's going to be a busy week coming back from break. So why don't you please look at your calendars and we'll get back to Ms. Aquino.
If you don't mind,
So let's look, again, I am trying to be cognizant of those that, you know, are working out of town. So, I mean, I would definitely be looking at the latter part of the day. So maybe around 5, just to try to make sure we're not, yeah. So somewhere in between 5 and 7, 5 and 8.
thank you.
Well, in the 30 minutes, and we're looking at from 5 to 8, I would prefer one start
Right,
at 7:30.
I think Ms. Aquino can later on
Yes.
provide us with times and
Yes.
dates that are better.
Yes. So, yes, we will,
He's only available from 5 to 6. He has to leave by 6 on the 9th.
okay.
But since we're just talking about this, the search, that shouldn't take more than half hour.
Right, so if we would, yes, so, okay, so please check your calendars, we'll, sir, and Miss Aquino will reach out to us and we'll confirm on the timing. And then, so finally, you know, we spend so much time on process and so much time on some of our crises that, you know, I was thinking and reflecting on, we've had some really good progress in our schools, you know, and I really want to thank our site administrators and our teachers, just for their countless hours and all their effort in just getting our kids, you know, to move forward. And I know we have a lot of work to do, but we can't forget just the wonderful job that you all are doing. So thank you so much to our staff. And yes, and with that, I also would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you so much. Anything else? Oh, sorry, so sorry. No, well, we don't have, we've moved that up. Yeah, we've moved that up, so sorry.
Do you want to move to adjourn?
Yes, thank you. And with that, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn, please?
I move that we adjourn.
I second, but if you do it now, you're gonna beat my time.
And, we need to vote on that, right? Yes, sorry,
Vote
yes.
by hand?
Let's vote by hand to adjourn. 5 ayes. And with that, meeting adjourned. 9:16.